Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be starting my axle swap. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. If you enjoy my videos, it helps me help other people. So anyway, getting right into it. This is a 3/4 ton truck. So it has the Eaton 456 rear end in it, which is way too tall for what I want. So when I got the LS engine and transmission, I also paid the guy $60 for the 411 limited slip disc brake rear end. It's a 14 bolt, so it's a really nice rear for $60. It is 3.5 inches wider than the Eaton rear end, so I got to split the difference and I got to transfer brackets over and what have you. My ultimate plan for this rear end is to sell it, so I'm not going to butcher this up. I think what I will do is just buy Captain Fab's brackets and make them work, because the later model 14 bolts, like this one I got to 0304, its axle tube diameter is 3.5 inches, whereas the older 14 bolt is like a little bit less than that. So I'll have to open up his brackets to fit the 3.5 inch diameter, but it'll still be easier than me fabbing up brackets, and I don't want to take the time to do it. Today's goal, since it's so nice outside, what I'm gonna do is cut off the brackets that are existing on the new 14 bolt because I can't use them. I'll use the plasma cutter hopefully. Some of it's kind of thick. Some of the bottom of the brackets with the fillet welds are pretty thick, so we'll just have to see. I'm sure I'll be doing some grinding, but anyway, that's kind of the goal to date. Hopefully I'll be able to get this jig set up on this plywood. I saw a picture on the forum of, how some other people did it. So yeah, we're just gonna try and make some progress. So what you just saw was a pretty much brand new plasma cutter die out on me. So yeah. So as you can see, I've got my rear end kind of jigged up. I've got some 2x stacked up to the trailing arm mounts, and I've got those holes marked off on the 2x on both sides. And then I kind of came up with a rough angle approximator that I just tack welded together. So, and I did it off the face of the bolts. I got this idea off of a couple other guys on the forums, and I've got that marked on my OSB. I marked off the center of where that U-joint is on the Eaton. I think it's going to be off a little bit on the new axle, but that's okay because I've got a carrier bearing. And as far as the panhard bar mount, I might wait because I suspect that will be in a different location too. So I've got the axle suspended, got my angle finding plate here, and I have my backup ready. What I've went and done is I ordered these brackets from Captain Fab. It doesn't want to sit flush around the circumference, so I'll upload a picture here. So I've just got to open these up a little bit at the edges to make these brackets work. As you can see, I drilled 2 holes in the bottom of the bracket so I could screw it down to my jig right where it needs to be so I could relocate them easily. I'm just gonna center the axle between the brackets off of the back face of the caliper mounts. I'm gonna measure in about 7.5 inches to the edge of this bracket, which will center the axle. Where the drive shaft connects isn't gonna be center, but that's okay. It's just gonna be a little bit off. But the axle itself, it'll be centered underneath the truck by measuring it that way. So my plan is just to put a few tack welds on the brackets to the axle shaft, and then I'll move it onto the truck, bolt it up, and then I'm gonna try and weld more of it on the truck. That way I can try and avoid any warpage, because there is a little bit of play with these blocks, so that's kind of how I'm gonna offset the warp problem from the heat. I've got the brackets tack welded on. I raised it up and saw where I need to clearance the tube just very slightly on both sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and transfer it underneath the truck and bolt it up, and then finish welding. So that way I can hopefully offset any warpage to where the brackets won't fit. Got it bolted up, and now I'm gonna commence to welding my brackets up. It's hard to tell, but I have grinded all the rust away, so I've got a clean surface to weld. I've got the brackets fully welded on. Now before I get it ready to paint, I'm gonna take it to the rear end guy, just have him go through it, make sure he doesn't see anything obvious before I throw it underneath the truck. Then I'll bring it back and prep it and paint it. Well, I've had yet another interesting experience. We're gonna call it interesting because we're trying to remain positive. Took my rear end to the gentleman who's very well known, very well recommended, older guy, been doing it forever. Forever as in like 65 years, since he was like 14 or 15, so he knows what he's doing. Took in the rear end, and I told him I wanted it basically gone through, and I wanted it to be no issues, basically brand new, replace anything that needed to be replaced. So he told me everything would be $1,500. Well, not having an ample amount of experience dealing with rear ends, I said, okay, he's very well known. I had him do my transmission and my grandfather's truck's transmission, which didn't have any issue. And okay. So he did not replace the gears because he said they were okay, which was one reason why I thought the cost was $1,500. And I started taking the hub off the spindle because I'm gonna replace the studs. And as I'm doing this, I realized, well, the dust plate needs to be replaced because it's rusted to crap. So I take it all apart and I pull the hub off, and I noticed that the inner seal was not replaced. So on further inspection, I realized that the hub bearings weren't replaced either. So for $1,500, I guess the only thing that gets you is, you know, the 4 bearings within the differential and the pinion. And after talking to a couple people, that seems extremely high. My buddy from work, I've known a while, he's done a bunch of rear ends, through his hot rodding days. He did his for his 50 Merc. He's got a 67 Firebird. He did it for his 57 truck. And he had offered to do it, but I didn't really want to bother him with it. And I figured, well, I'll just pay the guy $1,500 and it'll be all brand new. I won't have to deal with it. So that was kind of the first, what I would deem a disappointment, because my words to the guy was, I wanted it brand new, basically. Whatever needed to be replaced, I wanted replaced. So for $1,500, I'm thinking that's the case. Well, not even getting hub bearings seems kind of disappointing. But it's simple enough, whatever. I don't know how much the bearings are at this point. I could deal with that. When I dropped this off to him, I showed him exactly where we burned through the tube, and I told him I wanted him to check it for slag and make sure that it was clean. Well, after I'm going through all of this, I'm thinking back to our conversation, and when I was leaving, he was asking me why the mounts were at an angle, which means he forgot that we even had the conversation about the mounts. So as I'm getting to look at this hub and seeing what all I didn't have done for $1,500, I take my flashlight and I look down the axle tube, and I would describe it no less than shock. And I'm not a person to be shocked often or speechless, but I was speechless. I didn't get a picture of that side of the axle. I did get a picture of the other side after this whole ordeal went on, but it was chock full of slag. And I mean chock full as in excessive amount of slag, which wouldn't have been a big deal if he cleaned it or made any attempt to clean it or looked in it like I asked him to, or this, that, and the other. So then my concern is I just paid $1,500 for new diff bearings, and I've got probably thousands of little opportunities to totally ruin those bearings. Now what? So I proceeded to go through the hub end with a magnet and scrapers and little lint-free towels and clean out that side. And I was very upset about it. Ended up taking it back to him, and he said he would clean it out real good after an extended conversation of him not wanting to take it back. And during that conversation, I had gone back in my trash can and just dug through a couple of the towels that I had cleaned out this one side of the tube with, and those towels had some slag left in them. So this is just a very small portion of the slag that I pulled out of there, but that's all just little bits of metal that are about the size of a BBs, and they were chucked full of them. So as I'm basically guilt tripping this guy to take my axle back and do it the way he should have done it, the right way, and not screw somebody over, he was arguing with me that the slag wouldn't make a difference, that they wouldn't get back into the bear. I mean, it was a slew of excuses. So I took this baggie and put it in his hand and mushed it into his hand, and I said, "These are metal pieces. There's no way these are not going to mess up these bearings." So he reluctantly took it back and said he would clean out the other side. So I'm going to put in a picture now of the other side after I got it back the second time, And when I say it is obvious he did not even open it up and clean it, you're going to see for yourself. He didn't even open it up and clean it. So not only did he lie to me, not only did he screw me over, he lied to me a second time and didn't clean it the second time after I took it back. So this rear end project has been an experience. Alrighty, well, goodness gracious. We've got it wire wheeled. We've got our brackets welded up. Now I'm trying to fit the panhard bar, and I've had to line this rear end up both front to back and side to side, which is this cluster of ratchet straps. I've simulated about 400 pounds as accurately as I could. I put 300-ish on there and then ballparked another 100 with the ratchet strap. So I just did that to get my panhard mount close. So I may have to modify this panhard bar to be adjustable later on once I get the bed and all that on. I have that bed, but it'd kind of be a royal pain to try and get that on here just for this. So I'm just gonna wing it. So I'm gonna check my side to side measurement now, out from the frame rail over to the face. And if I need to adjust it, I've got this ratchet strap. And if it's good, I'm going to weld up my panhard bar probably where it sits. So that's the situation. I'm hoping to get this panhard mount welded up this evening and scuff this bad boy and spray it with epoxy tomorrow. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I've got the bracket welded up for my panhard bar, so that'll be good enough. I'll probably end up having to make it adjustable since I had to ratchet strap the axle into the correct position underneath the frame, but that'll be fine. I'll deal with that later. At least now I can go ahead and seal up my axle. Alrighty, well that wraps up the rear end. I've got 2 good coats of sealer on it. And it's ready to go underneath the truck. So tomorrow I'll put it back underneath the truck, put my panhard bar under it probably, just to leave it for now. And we'll keep rolling. Once again, thanks everybody for watching. In the next couple weeks I should be getting in the accessory drive, and I hope I get in the transmission cross member. That's one of the last things I'm waiting on, that and the valve covers, so that way I can get my firewall clearance and figure out if I gotta notch that out a little bit more. But as usual, appreciate everybody who's watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see y'all next time.